My name is Susan Miller, and if you'd told me a year ago that I'd be standing in a church, staring at my husband's casket, trying to remember the last thing I said to him before he died, I would have laughed. 42 years of marriage doesn't prepare you for silence, the kind that follows you into your bones. The church was packed that day. Neighbors, old coworkers, people I barely recognized. Everyone came to honor Frank Miller, a good husband, a reliable father, a quiet man who never caused trouble. And up until that morning, I believed the same. I stood near the front pew, clutching the funeral program so tightly it wrinkled in my hands. My daughter Emma held my arm. My son Michael kept his head down, fighting tears. Everything felt normal as a funeral can feel. Then she walks in. A young woman, mid-20s, someone I've never seen before in my life. She doesn't look around nervously. She doesn't hesitate. She walks straight down the aisle, past the whispers, past the confused faces, right up to the front. And she turns to the pastor. I'd like to say something. I remember staring at her, confused. Who was she? Why was she here? She stepped up to the podium. Her hands trembled. For a moment, she just stood there, gathering herself. Then she looked out at all of us. I know most of you don't know me, but Frank was my father. The entire church froze. My daughter whispered, "Mom, what is she talking about?" My son looked like someone punched him in the chest. And me? I felt something inside me crack. Because I knew what people were thinking. Affair? Secret child? Betrayal? The girl kept speaking, tears streaming down her face. He always told me he'd bring us together someday, that I'd meet the rest of my family. I guess he never found the right moment. Us? That word echoed in my head like a warning. People started murmuring. Someone gasped. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I just stared at this stranger who had my husband's eyes. The same deep brown, the same gold fleck near the pupil. She wasn't lying. But nothing prepared me for what she said next. Dad always said he lived 2 lives, and someday the truth would come out. 2 lives, and that's when I realized my husband hadn't just kept a secret. He'd kept an entire world hidden from me, a world that was about to unravel. And this girl, she wasn't the only surprise waiting for me, because what Frank had been hiding was far more twisted than I ever imagined.
After the service ended, I couldn't speak. My children surrounded me, asking questions I had no answers for. But before I could gather myself, the young woman approached. Up close, she looked even younger, nervous. Her eyes weren't defiant, they were apologetic. "Mrs. Miller?" she whispered. Hearing my name on her lips made my stomach twist. "My name is Anna. I thought you knew about me. Dad said—" She stopped when she saw my face. The confusion, the pain. Her voice broke. "You didn't know?" My daughter stepped between us. "Are you saying our father had a child with someone else?" Anna's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head quickly. "No, it's not like that. It's complicated." Complicated. Such a small word for such a massive wound. Before anyone could speak, someone else stepped forward. A woman, around my age. Modest, navy dress, trembling hands. She looked at me, and I saw something I didn't expect. fear. "I'm Margaret," she said softly. "I was Frank's partner. Partner. Not mistress. Not affair. Partner." My son took a step back like he'd been hit. Emma gasped. And me? I stared at this woman who looked as ordinary as me, someone who baked casseroles and sent Christmas cards. And suddenly, I understood. She had no idea about me either. The shock on her face, the apology in her eyes. She wasn't a homewrecker. She was another wife. We stood there, two women blindsided by the same man. Margaret's voice shook. "He always said he'd tell you someday. He said he needed more time." Time. He got 40 years with me, 20 with her. "All this time?" I whispered. "He had another home? Another life?" She nodded. "Yes, in Ridgewood." Ridgewood. 30 minutes away. So close, yet an entire world apart. My son's jaw clenched. How was this even possible? Before anyone could answer, Margaret reached into her purse with shaking hands. "He asked me to give you something." She pulled out a sealed envelope. My name, Frank's handwriting. My fingers went numb as she placed it in my hand. I didn't open it. Not yet. Because standing between the life I thought I had and the truth waiting in that envelope, I realized something. If Frank had been lying for 20 years, this letter wouldn't be an explanation. It would be the first crack in a story about to fall apart completely.
I didn't open the envelope at the church. Some truths you need to face in private, where no one can see your heartbreaking. We stepped outside into the cold November air, leaves crunched under our feet. Margaret stood with Anna, both looking lost. My children stayed close to me. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. We weren't enemies. We were collateral damage. I turned to Margaret. "How long were you with him?" Her lips trembled. 20 years. 20 years! A lifetime wrapped inside another lifetime. "And you truly didn't know about me?" She shook her head. "He told me he was divorced, that his kids lived out of state and weren't close to him." Every lie he told her erased us. Before I could process it, the funeral director approached, holding a small metal box. "Mrs. Miller, Frank left this. He requested it be given to you after the service." The box was heavier than it looked. Cold. Dense. Frank wasn't a man who kept sentimental things. So why this? I sat on a bench beneath an old oak tree. Everyone gathered close. I lifted the lid. Inside, a set of keys, a folded map, a bank receipt, a small velvet pouch, and another envelope sealed with tape. My breath caught. I picked up the keys first. Different shapes, different sizes. House keys, mailbox keys, safe deposit keys. Margaret gasped quietly. "That looks like the key to Frank's locked desk drawer." I didn't want to imagine what was inside. Next, the map. A street map of Ridgewood. A red circle marked an isolated area near the edge of town. "What is that place?" I asked Margaret. She swallowed. "I don't know. We never went there." Never went there. But he circled it. Then, the bank receipt. Dated 6 months ago. $20,000 withdrawn in cash. Emma whispered, "Mom, what was Dad doing with that kind of money?" "I don't know." I said, "Not yet." I reached for the velvet pouch. Soft. Too soft. I loosened the drawstrings. Something fell into my hand. A ring. A gold band. Simple, unassuming, but not his wedding band. Margaret gasped, "I've never seen that before." Neither had I. A second ring. A second promise. A second life. Then I picked up the final envelope.
thick, sealed carefully. I tore it open. Documents. I pulled out the first page. Last will and testament of Frank Miller. Margaret's eyes widened. He didn't show me any will. My son frowned. Mom, you and Dad already had a will. Why would he write another one? I scanned the names. Beneficiaries, instructions, but not the names I expected. Not mine, not my children's, not Margaret's, not Anna's. A completely different name. Who is Claire Henderson? Margaret stepped back. I've never heard of her. Anna shook her head. That name means nothing to me. So why did Frank leave everything to this unknown woman? Then I sought it. A handwritten note clipped to the will. If this reaches you before the truth does, follow the map. Don't trust anyone, not even the ones who think they knew me. Frank. I looked at the keys, the ring, the map, the stranger's name, and I knew. Have you ever found something that made you question everything you thought you knew? I was about to discover what Frank was really hiding, and I need you to stay with me through this, because this was only the beginning.
The funeral director cleared his throat. Mrs. Miller, there's one more thing. He pointed to the underside of the box. There's a hidden compartment. I almost missed it. A small metal latch, nearly invisible. My hands shook as I lifted it. Inside, a single photograph. Not old, not faded, recent. A picture of Frank standing beside a woman I'd never seen. Not Margaret, not me, not anyone in our family. A woman smiling up to him like she'd known him forever. On the back, in Frank's handwriting, tell her I tried. Margaret covered her mouth. Anna stepped back. Emma whispered, Mom, who is that? I studied the woman. Not young like Anna, not my age like Margaret, somewhere in her 40s, old enough to have lived a full life, young enough to start over. Her arm looped through his, comfortably, naturally, like they shared a history I knew nothing about. My son leaned in. He looks different. He was right. No guilt in his eyes, no weight on his shoulders. He looked freed, like a man who finally laid down a secret too heavy to carry. I don't think she was a lover, I said quietly. They all turned to me. Margaret whispered, How do you know? Because I knew how Frank looked when he lied, and in this picture, he isn't lying to anyone. This wasn't the smile of a cheating man. This was the smile of a man who'd finally faced the truth. Whatever that truth was. Anna pulled out her phone. I think I can find her. My heart skipped. How? Reverse image search, she said, typing quickly. A minute passed. Then 2. I found her, Anna whispered. Her name is Linda Carter. Not Claire, not anyone of us knew. Linda Carter. A third woman. Who is she? I asked. Anna scrolled. She works at the Ridgewood Community Clinic and... She hesitated. And what? And she's the one who filed Dad's death certificate. My hand flew to my mouth. He told me he'd just had back pain. I nodded slowly. He told me the same. My daughter frowned. Why would he hide an illness? Why tell none of us, but tell her? We all stared at each other, the pieces rearranging themselves. This wasn't about romance anymore. This was about trust, about something he didn't want his family to face. Anna's voice cut through. There's more. Linda Carter. Her mother's name is Claire Henderson. The air left my lungs. Linda Carter, the woman in the photo, the woman who filed Frank's death certificate, the woman with the matching pendant. Her mother was the stranger my husband left everything to. Claire Henderson. I gripped the photograph tighter, because suddenly, this wasn't just a mystery. This was a legacy. One Frank tried to protect, hide, and explain, but ran out of time. And tomorrow morning, we were going to Ridgewood to meet the woman in the photograph and finally learn what my husband died trying to tell me. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph. Frank smiling beside a stranger. A woman wearing the same pendant he'd given me. The same pendant he said was one of a kind. Another lie in a lifetime of lies. By dawn, I couldn't sit in that house another minute. I needed answers, real ones. My children insisted on coming, and honestly, I was grateful. Grief wears down the body as much as the heart. By 8 a.m., we were on the road to Ridgewood. The drive was quiet. Morning sunlight filtered through the windshield, catching dust in the air. Everything looked unreal. Like I was somewhere between a memory and a dream. My daughter finally spoke. "Mom, are you sure about this?" No, I wasn't sure. But uncertainty had never stopped me before. I need to know who she is and why Frank trusted her when he couldn't trust us. Halfway down the highway, my phone buzzed. A message from Margaret. "Are you going to Ridgewood? If yes, please let me come too. I need to understand what Frank kept from me." For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel alone. Margaret wasn't the enemy. She was the only other person who understood this tangled truth. Soft. "Tell her yes," I said. When we reached Ridgewood, I recognized it immediately. Tiny shops, old wooden houses, a bakery with a blue awning. A small, quiet place. The kind of place where secrets should stand out. But somehow, Franks had lived here without a footprint. Margaret and Anna met us outside a cafe near the town center. Margaret looked exhausted. Anna looked uneasy. We exchanged quiet greetings. No hostility, no awkwardness, just understanding. Anna pulled out her phone. I found more information about Linda Carter. My breath caught. She works at the Ridgewood Community Clinic, and she hesitated. And what? And she volunteers at a memory care facility. She specializes in Alzheimer's patients. Margaret's eyes widened. Alzheimer's? And suddenly, everything started to make sense. The money withdrawn, the locked drawer, the hidden will, the woman he trusted most. He wasn't hiding a lover, he was hiding an illness. My son's voice was tight. He think he had Alzheimer's? I nodded slowly. And he didn't want us to watch him disappear. That's why he created the second life, not out of betrayal, out of fear. Margaret's voice trembled. "So, Linda, she was helping him?" "Yes," I said, "and her mother, Claire Henderson, must be the reason he knew her in the first place." Anna looked at the map. "Then what's at that circled location?" Before I could answer, my daughter pointed across the street. "Mom, that's the clinic. A modest brick building, 2 maple trees shading the entrance. The place Frank had walked many times, alone." "Let's go," I said. My heart pounded as we crossed the street. If you've made it this far with me, you understand why I couldn't let this go.
What would you do in my place? I had to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Because behind that door was the woman who knew my husband's final secret, and I was about to meet her.
The clinic door chimed softly as we stepped inside. A modest waiting room, faded chairs, the smell of antiseptic and old magazines. The receptionist looked up. "Good morning. How can I help you?" My daughter stepped forward. "We're here to see Linda Carter." The receptionist's expression changed. Recognition. Sadness. "Is she expecting you?" "No," Margaret said, "but she knew our father, Frank Miller." The woman's eyes softened. "One moment." She disappeared down a hallway. We stood there in silence, waiting. Then, footsteps. A woman appeared in the doorway. The woman from the photograph, Linda Carter. She looked tired, worn, like someone carrying grief of her own. When she saw us, she stopped. Her eyes moved from me to Margaret, to our children. "You're Susan," she said quietly. I nodded, "And you must be Margaret." Both of us nodded. Linda took a shaky breath. "I knew you'd come eventually. Frank said you would." "Then you know why we're here," I said. "Yes, please, come to my office." We followed her down a narrow hallway into a small office. Pictures on the wall, certificates, a photo of an elderly woman. "That's my mother, Claire Henderson." We all stared at the photo. An elderly woman, gentle eyes, soft smile. "She has advanced Alzheimer's. She's been in memory care for 3 years." Margaret leaned forward. "How did Frank know her?" Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Because Claire is Frank's sister." The room went silent. "His sister?" Linda nodded. "His older sister. She raised him after their parents died." I felt the world tilt. Frank never mentioned a sister, not once, not in 42 years. Linda wiped her eyes. "He didn't tell anyone, because she had a difficult life, struggled with mental illness, made choices he couldn't explain, and when she developed Alzheimer's, he made a promise to take care of her. So the money was for her care," Linda finished. "He paid for everything, her facility, her medications, everything." Margaret broke her voice. "Why didn't he tell us?" Linda looked at her with sad, knowing eyes. "Because he was ashamed. He thought if you knew about Claire's struggles, you'd judge her, judge him. He wanted to protect her memory." "And the second life?" Linda sighed. "He started noticing his own symptoms 2 years ago. Memory lapses, confusion. He came to me for help. He was terrified of becoming like Claire, of forgetting you, of burdening you." Tears streamed down my face. "He was dying, and he didn't tell us?" Linda nodded. "He didn't want you to watch him fade. He loved you too much for that." Margaret covered her face. I thought he didn't love me." "He loved you both," Linda said firmly. "That's why he kept you apart. He didn't want either of you to feel like the other woman. He wanted both families to feel whole." I looked at Margaret. She looked at me. And in that moment, we understood. Frank didn't betray us. He tried to protect us in the most broken, misguided way possible. But he tried. "Where is Claire now?" I asked. Linda stood. "Would you like to meet her?" I nodded. "Yes, I think I need to." The memory care facility was 10 minutes away. A quiet building surrounded by gardens.
soft music playing in the hallways. Everything designed to comfort, to soothe. Linda led us to a sunlit room overlooking a small courtyard, and there, sitting in a chair by the window, was Claire Henderson, an elderly woman, white hair, gentle face. She looked peaceful, lost in a world only she could see. Linda knelt beside her. "Mom, you have visitors." Claire turned slowly. Her eyes, so much like Frank's, looked at us without recognition. "Hello," she said softly. "Do I know you?" "No, but I knew your brother, Frank." Something flickered in her eyes. Faint, brief. "Frankie, my little Frankie." Tears filled my eyes. "Yes, you're Frankie." Claire smiled. "He was always so good, always taking care of me." "He took care of all of us," I said quietly. We sat with her for a while. She didn't remember Frank had passed. She didn't remember us. But she remembered love. The kind that doesn't fade, even when memory does. As we left, Linda handed me an envelope. "This is the last letter Frank wrote. He asked me to give it to you after you met Claire." I opened it slowly. "Susan, if you're reading this, you've met my sister, and you know the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you myself. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't enough. You were always more than enough. I just didn't know how to be the man you deserved when I was so afraid of losing myself. Take care of Claire. Take care of Margaret. Take care of each other. Forgive me if you can. And if you can't, I understand. I love you. I always did. Frank." I folded the letter carefully. "Margaret," I said, "we need to talk." That evening, Margaret and I sat together in my living room. 2 women, 2 families, 1 broken man between us. "I don't know how to feel," Margaret said quietly. "Angry, sad, grateful, all at once." I nodded. "Me too." "He hurt us," she said. "But he was hurting too." "Yes, and maybe that's what forgiveness is, holding both truths at the same time." We sat in silence for a while. Then Margaret spoke again. "What do we do now?" "We honor him by taking care of Claire, by staying in each other's lives, by not letting his fear define our future." Margaret reached for my hand. "I'd like that." Anna and my children joined us. For the first time, we felt like a family. Not perfect, not traditional, but real. Over the next few months, we visited Claire together. We shared stories about Frank. We laughed. We cried. We learned to forgive the man who loved us, imperfectly. And slowly, the anger faded. What remained was something stronger: understanding, compassion, love. Complicated and messy, but real. Frank's secret didn't destroy us. In a strange way, it brought us together. Because sometimes the greatest act of love is trusting someone with your brokenness, even if you don't do it perfectly. Frank tried, and in the end, that had to be enough. Thank you for walking through this painful journey with me. If this story touched your heart, or if you've ever had to forgive the unforgivable, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Because we all carry secrets, we all make mistakes, and sometimes the hardest person to forgive is the one who loved us most. This is Susan Miller, and this was the secret my husband took to his grave.